She had no head. Completely, cleanly gone. Everything above her neck had vanished, and warm blood was still dripping from the collar of her red jacket. Yet she was still standing, lantern in one hand, walking slowly deeper into the forest. Her footsteps were regular, just like a living person. The sound of stepping on wet fallen leaves, breaking branches, and occasionally the metallic scraping of something being dragged across the ground. The yellow light of the lantern swayed between the trees, gradually moving away. I couldn't move. I couldn't even make a sound. I could only stand there, staring at that abnormal sight. And what was most terrifying was the moment she turned around. Despite having nothing above her neck, she was definitely looking at me. With a face that didn't exist, with eyes that didn't exist, she recognized me. My name is Ethan Cooper, and this is the story of the night I learned the true horror of this place. Everything began the night I met that woman. The memory from 3 years ago is still burned into my mind. The smell of blood, the footsteps that wouldn't stop, and tic-tac's warning cries. But it's difficult to tell everything from the beginning. Terror comes in stages. It starts with small inconsistencies, then eventually becomes a massive darkness that overturns reality and attacks. During my 3 years at that gas station, I came face to face with beings beyond human understanding, and it all began with a single job advertisement. You couldn't call it a dream job. That much was certain. A place where I could work while studying to become a veterinary assistant. With such naive thoughts, I took this job 3 years ago. To pay for my first year of college tuition, I was driving around town when I found it. Back then, I still believed the world was a rational and predictable place. I thought nothing existed that couldn't be explained by science, and ghost stories were just entertainment. As someone studying to become a veterinarian, learning animal physiology and anatomy, supernatural phenomena were nothing more than jokes to me. Later, I would learn just how foolish that arrogance was. Milton's Gas and Convenience Store, a rundown gas station at the edge of a small national forest park, several miles from town. A "Help Wanted" sign was posted in the window. I'd been living here for 2 weeks, but had never seen this place before. The building itself was 1960s architecture, with concrete block exterior walls painted over many times. Currently a pale yellow, but blue and green old paint showed through the peeling sections. The roof was corrugated tin, with rust holes in one corner. There were 2 gas pumps, but one had out-of-order tape on it. Tall pine trees surrounded the store, creating a dim atmosphere even during the day. Whenever the wind blew, the needles made whispering sounds. And behind the building, an old unused tow truck was parked. I had no idea then that I would later learn the importance of this truck. Store owner Milton Jackson was behind the counter watching a supernatural rerun on a small TV. When the bell above the door rang, he slowly looked up. My first impression of Milton is unforgettable. Appearing to be in his late 60s, he had deeply etched wrinkles, gray stubble, and surprisingly clear blue eyes. Those eyes held wisdom that comes from years of experience, and at the same time, the color of deep fatigue. His hands were large with the hard calluses typical of laborers, but his fingertips moved with surprising dexterity, and his voice had weight, like the voice of someone who had lived carrying many secrets.
You hear about the job?
He spoke slowly, sizing me up. Yes. How did you know?
Tic-Tac told me.
Tic-Tac? Yeah. He pointed toward the entrance.
The one up on the sign.
On top of the rusty metal sign reading Milton's Gas and Convenience Store, a huge black and white crow was perched. This crow wasn't ordinary. First, its size was abnormally large. With wings spread, It would easily exceed 3 feet, and most impressive was its intelligent gaze. It had one eye fixed on me, staring as if observing a human. Its feathers were deep black, with pure white from neck to chest. The description, black and white, was perfect.
She's been here since I bought this store about 15 years now.
Milton explained.
I was wary at first, but now she's like family. Without her, this job wouldn't work. I named her Tic Tac because she likes Tic Tacs. She also likes popcorn and gummy bears, but Gummy Bear wouldn't have the same dignity, would it?
I suppose not. I was starting to worry if there really was a job here.
Can you work nights? If so, it's 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. at $20 an hour. Sundays off. I handle the day shift. That's the busiest time. You'd handle nights. Just the two of us work here.
The phrase busiest time made me inwardly question, could this remote location really be busy during the day? But Milton's expression was serious. For him, this job was something more than just business. What's the clientele like? I asked hesitantly.
During the day, locals come for gas, buy coffee and snacks. Normal customers.
He paused for a moment.
At night, well, mostly campers and hikers. This area is the entrance to the national park. However, night customers require special attention. I'll teach you about that.
Special attention?
I'll explain later. First, let's get you familiar with the basic work.
$20 an hour at a store that probably didn't see 10 customers a week. There was no reason to hesitate. I accepted the job without delay. The next evening at 5:45, I reported for work. Milton taught me about cleaning shelves and counters, restocking inventory, and operating the register. He also gave me his home phone number for emergencies and the key to the front door. While learning the store layout, I began noticing small abnormalities. First, every single window had thin metal mesh attached from the inside. Milton explained it as bug screening, but the mesh was too fine for bugs. Small bells were attached to the refrigerator doors, chiming whenever opened. Products on the shelves were neatly arranged by type, but no red packaged products were anywhere to be found. There was Coca-Cola, but not a single item with red labeling. And strangest of all, small mirrors were installed in all 4 corners of the store, strategically placed as if to monitor blind spots.
Feel free to eat snacks. There's a hot plate in the office if you want to heat up soup cans.
Then he pulled a red notebook from the drawer under the register. 3 words were written on the cover in thick black letters. Always keep watch. The notebook had clearly been used for many years. The leather cover was blackened with grime, corners worn away. Page edges were yellowed, with brown stains in several places. Whether it was blood or something else was unclear. The notebook gave off a faint sweet smell, like flowers on the verge of decay. Not unpleasant, but unnatural. And looking closely at the Always Keep Watch lettering on the cover, it appeared to have been written over multiple times with different writing instruments, as if successive night shift workers had continued darkening the letters to emphasize their importance.
This,
He said,
is your real job. Is your real job. Read this after I leave. You won't believe it at first, but eventually you will. Do your best. When something's coming, Tic Tac will warn you.
I tried to ask what was coming, but he shook his head, lightly tapped the notebook, and said,
I need to make dinner at home. See you at 6 a.m.
As he was leaving, he turned back and added one final comment.
Ethan, promise me one thing. No matter how strange things get, don't leave your post until morning. That's the only way to keep yourself alive. And if you really feel in danger, don't hesitate to call me. This job isn't meant to be done alone.
I didn't yet understand the weight of those words. After watching him slowly drive away in his old truck, I stood at the front door. Looking up at the crow, I said, "Well, Tic-Tac, it's just you and me tonight." Tic-Tac tilted her head and cawed once. It sounded like a greeting. The sunset was beginning to sink beyond the forest, long shadows crossing the parking lot. The temperature was dropping, and I felt a slight chill. I couldn't tell if it was just from the cold or some other premonition. The first thing I did was check the store. I needed to make sure no one else was there. Bathroom, storage room, small office. Everything was fine. However, I discovered something strange in the storage room. Along one wall, various sizes of flashlights and lanterns were neatly arranged, all charged and ready to use. Next to them were road-closed signs and flashing hazard lights, like emergency evacuation supplies. And most impressive was a hand-drawn map posted on the back wall of the storage room, a detailed map of the surrounding forest park with 7 campsites circled in red marker. Each was numbered, and several locations had black X marks. Below the map, in small letters, was written "Last sighting locations." I grabbed a Coke from the refrigerator and sat on the stool behind the counter. Then I opened the red notebook. Numbered, carefully handwritten instructions spanning several pages. 1. Do not alter this book. Do not erase or change any writing. If new information is discovered, add it to the end of the list. Below this first rule, a small note was written. Former employee Jake tried to change Rule 3. The next morning, his car was left in the parking lot, but he was never seen again. MJ. A chill ran down my spine. Who was Jake? And what happened to him? 2. About customers. If asked about campsites, direct them to Hadley Preserve, 2 hours north. Talk about beautiful scenery, clean restrooms, riverside campsites, and make it sound as appealing as possible. If they insist on staying at any of the 7 campsites, check if they're wearing red clothing. Use any means necessary, from offering cash to theft, to get them to remove anything red. Next to this item were annotations written in multiple handwritings. Female hiker with red bandana. Took 2 hours of persuasion, but finally got her to change to a different color. Confirmed safe descent the next morning. DK, man with red jacket. Successfully got him to return to his car and change. He dodged a bullet. Asar, family with red tent. Provided substitute and successfully guided them to another location. Seeing the children's smiles, I'm confident it was the right decision. AL. And finally, written in shaky letters, woman in red jacket. Failed to persuade. Never returned by morning. EC. Those were my initials. Did I write this? But I had no memory of it. And was this woman the headless woman I saw in the opening? 3. Red attracts the watcher. Do not enter the forest wearing red. In fact, it's better not to wear red at all while working here. No red t-shirts. No red sneakers. Do not park red cars in front of the store. He usually doesn't come out from deep in the forest, but safety first. The description of this watcher was written in more detail at the bottom of the page. Watcher characteristics. Approximately 8 feet tall, human-like body but abnormally long limbs. Face has never been confirmed, but witness testimony states there is deep shadow where a face should be. Shows abnormal reaction to red color, luring humans wearing red deep into the forest. Their subsequent fate is unknown. Important. The Watcher cannot be defeated through physical attack. The most effective response is avoidance and concealment. Strong light sources can temporarily deter it, but this is not a fundamental solution. I stopped reading, took my Coke can, and headed for the front door. When I stepped onto the porch, the old boards creaked under my footsteps. Tic-Tac tilted her head and stared at me with one eye. The outside air was colder than expected, and a faint smell of soil and leaf mold drifted from the forest. But something else seemed mixed in, a sweet, heavy smell like flowers. It was the same smell I'd noticed from the notebook inside the store. Tic-Tac made a small sound and stared toward the forest. There was wariness in her eyes. Sighing, I walked to the road. No cars in sight. The road to the left led through flatland and scrubland to town. 500 feet to the right, the road climbed into hills, curved sharply, and disappeared into dense primeval forest. From deep in that forest, strange sounds occasionally carried on the wind. Not bird calls or insect sounds, but voices of some other creature. It resembled laughter, but not human. Deeper, more unpleasant, and more hungry sounding. I found myself backing away unconsciously. An instinctive fear that reason couldn't explain was welling up from the core of my body. It was decision time. Stay or leave. $20 an hour for easy work was significant. Was the old man crazy? I didn't know, but he didn't seem dangerous. I decided to give it 2 weeks. Having taken this job, I'd do my best. That was all. But deep in my heart, the answer was already decided. College tuition, apartment rent, living expenses. I had no choice. And more than anything, I was young and believed I was invincible. Supernatural phenomena didn't exist. These were all just the delusions of a lonely old man. Telling myself this, I returned to the store. Later, I would learn just how foolish this arrogance was. I went back inside and sat behind the counter to continue reading. For the Crow is an early warning system. She'll let you know when something's coming. She's never wrong. When you hear her call, expect a visitor to arrive soon. Every morning at dawn, bring the stepladder from storage and fill Tic-Tac's silver cup. It's at the end of the perch above the door. Fill it to the brim with fresh popcorn and green Tic-Tacs. Green is the only color she prefers. This is payment for her service as guardian of the South Road. Do this every morning without fail. Never forget. Below this item, notes from previous workers continued. Forgot to feed Tic-Tac for 3 days. On the 4th night, she gave no warning. That night, Code Purple occurred. Barely survived, but must never forget again. RH. About her preferred colors. Green Tic-Tacs only. Never give red. Orange should also be avoided. White is neutral, but green is most effective. MJ. 5. If you see a black and gray German Shepherd on the road, listen to what he says. That's Old Sarge, and he comes to help when things get bad. About Old Sarge, believed to be a former military dog. Estimated age 12 to 15 years. Slight limp in left hind leg, old battle scar on left ear. Extremely intelligent, understands human speech. His ability to sense danger far exceeds humans. When he appears, it's always evidence that serious crisis is approaching. Note: Sarge is not an ordinary dog. His eyes have human-like intelligence, as if he knows all the secrets of this place. MJ. 6. Stir the nacho cheese every 30 minutes. If you don't stir it, the cheese hardens like a brick. Next to this seemingly harmless rule was also an annotation. This isn't just food management. The smell of nacho cheese has the effect of keeping certain beings away. Keep it constantly warm and let the aroma fill the store. Actually, this smell has saved my life twice. DK. 7. If you see green lightning in an approaching storm, get the flashing hazard lights and road closed signs from storage and block the road to the park. about green lightning, a completely different phenomenon from normal lightning. Makes almost no sound, but the light is unnaturally strong and lasts several seconds. When this phenomenon occurs, abnormal activity in the forest becomes active. According to past records, missing persons always occur on nights with green lightning. J. 8. If the sky above the mountain turns deep purple. This is code purple. Load all emergency supplies into the tow truck, always parked out back. Block the road and evacuate all hikers and campers. Search all 7 campsites and look for parked cars. Get campers and hikers to leave immediately. Say whatever you have to. Get all humans out of the park. About this code purple, there was a detailed record on another page. Code purple occurrence records. August 15, 2018. Mountain color change confirmed at 8:30 p.m. Immediately began evacuation. Evacuated total of 12 people from campsites 3, 5, and 7. Next morning, discovered large hole at campsite 2. Approximately 10 feet diameter, depth unknown. Numerous inexplicable footprints around the hole. June 3, 2019. Color change confirmed at 7:45 p.m. During evacuation, one woman went missing from campsite 6. 3 days later, only her clothes were found. No blood traces. October 12, 2020. The most intense code purple. Color change continued from 6 p.m. until 4 a.m. the next morning. That night, unidentified roaring was heard intermittently from the forest. Fortunately, we succeeded in evacuating everyone beforehand. Important: on code purple nights, never approach the forest. It's when they are most active. MJ. 9. Keep the coffee pot full. When it drops below half, make a new pot. The strange instructions ended there. There were several more pages, but most were scribbled notes. I continued reading until I reached a paragraph titled "Weapons Available for Code Purple." The beings may be affected by strong light. However, further testing is needed. I closed the notebook. Watchers, green lightning, red colors, code purple, completely ridiculous. More than that, I was getting scared. The sun had set, and the world beyond the bright sodium lights of the gas pumps was growing dark. 3 loud, cause nearly made me jump from my chair. Tic-tac hopped twice on her perch, stared at me sharply, and flew off into the darkness of night. I was alone. And apparently, something was coming. When Tic-Tac's triple caw cut through the night's silence, my heart froze solid. The crow hopped twice on her perch, stared at me, then vanished into the darkness of night. I was left alone, and clearly, something was about to come. 15 minutes later, a hatchback slid up to the gas pump. The back seat was piled high with camping gear. When the woman who got out swiped her card and began fueling up, I breathed a sigh of relief. I'd been here since 6 p.m., and it was nearly 9 p.m. now. She was the first customer I'd seen in 3 hours. I watched as she checked her keys before heading toward the store entrance. Tall and lean, dressed for hiking, jeans and heavy boots. Long brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. I could see a plaid shirt under her lightweight jacket. I was looking forward to human contact for the first time in ages. When the bell above the door chimed and she entered the store, the smile on my face froze. The jacket she was wearing was a vivid red. As I watched her browse the snack section, my head raced through possible scenarios. She was selecting 3 packs of beef jerky, marshmallows, and a king-size 3 Musketeers bar. Should I tell her she was the 1,000th customer and could trade her jacket for merchandise from the store? No, her jacket looked expensive. She'd never go for that story. Should I stick my hand in my pocket and say, "This is a robbery, give me your jacket"? That was ridiculous, and I'd surely end up in jail. I could ignore the crazy old man's words. But no, I had taken this job, and I'd promised to do my best. She placed her items on the counter. While ringing them up, I asked where she was headed.
I'm going to Red Rock Canyon, she replied with a smile. It's not too far, is it?
I'm new here myself, I answered, but I think it's about 45 minutes up the road. If you drive another hour north, you can camp at Hadley Preserve. I hear it's a beautiful place where you can camp right by the river.
No, she said. I've driven 5 hours to get here. It's getting dark, and I want to set up camp, warm up dinner, and sleep. But maybe I'll check out that place next time.
That'll be $18.42. While she was searching through her handbag, I stammered out everything I could think of. You shouldn't wear red clothes in these mountains. She stopped and looked up at me.
Why not?
Well, it attracts mosquitoes. I smiled awkwardly, feeling like an idiot.
Oh, I'll keep that in mind.
She slid a 20 across the counter and said, "Keep the change," then headed for the door. The moment she got in her car, she must have locked the doors. Well, that went well. The rest of that night was quiet. In the morning, I found the stairs, made fresh popcorn in the popcorn machine, and filled the cup on Tic Tac's perch above the door. I sprinkled green Tic Tacs as instructed, but the crow was nowhere to be seen. Milton relieved me at exactly 6 a.m. When I told him about my single customer, he nodded and said, "You can only do what you can do." The next 2 nights were uneventful. Only one customer each night, neither wearing red. I got used to earning $20 an hour for doing almost nothing. I just had to follow Milton's instructions. After organizing the store, I spent my nights reading or watching YouTube on my phone. At 5 a.m., Tic Tac cawed 3 sharp times before flying off into the darkness. 20 minutes later, a patrol car pulled into the parking lot. The officer got out and entered the store. He introduced himself as Officer Jim Langston and said he was investigating a missing person. When he showed me a printout of a woman, my heart sank. Long brown hair in a ponytail, wearing a red jacket. It was my first customer. I told him everything. Well, I left out the mosquito part. He wrote down what time she left, where she was headed, what her car looked like, and what she purchased. He asked if she was with anyone, and I said she was alone. Before leaving, Officer Langston handed me the photo and asked me to post it on the bulletin board with the other photos. It was 5:45 a.m. As the sun began to peek through breaks in the clouds, I stepped onto the porch and watched the patrol car's flashing lights disappear into the distance. The bulletin board was on the left side of the porch. Until today, I had never paid attention to it. It was large, probably 6 multiplied by 8 feet, covered with paper notices. There were typical car sale ads and missing dog flyers. But mixed in with them were an unusually large number of missing person posters. There was no specific age or race, but they all had one thing in common. Everyone was wearing something red. Something truly strange might be happening in this forest. Since that morning's police visit, I began taking my job more seriously. Every night at work, I reviewed the park map, trying to memorize the campgrounds and various trails. I started keeping records of where people were headed and how long they planned to stay. I had Milton write down people's names, the cars they were driving, and which campgrounds they were staying at. When I asked for explanations about Watchers and Code Purple, the answer was always the same. You have to see it with your own eyes, boy. 2 weeks later, a couple stopped to get gas. They had a small boy with them in an old Volkswagen van. I noticed a red tent tied to the roof, so I told them we were running a promotion in the store. They could trade their old tent for any tent in the store. We actually had an excellent selection of camping gear. While they were considering the offer, I said I'd throw in a new camp stove too. That sealed the deal. A few weeks later, a man came by with his truck bed loaded with gear. While he was in the restroom, I stole a red sleeping bag from his truck and replaced it with the finest green one. He never even noticed. The scariest moment was around 7 p.m. one night. A mother was camping with her small daughter and stopped to buy gas and supplies. The girl looked to be about 6 years old. She was wearing a purple t-shirt with Bella written in glitter across the front, and she was also wearing small red tennis shoes with white laces. When I learned they were headed to Red Rock Canyon, where the last woman had disappeared, I panicked. I tried everything, including telling the mother about daily glitter craft parties for campers at Hadley Preserve. Nothing worked. I was seriously considering following them in my car and staging a minor accident when Tic Tac saved the situation. As the mother and daughter were heading toward the door, the little girl heard soft cooing from above. She stopped to look up at the huge black and white crow. That's when Tic Tac left her a gift. A large puddle of bird droppings landed on one of her small red shoes. The mother swore, glared at me, and rushed her daughter to the car. From the counter, I could see her taking off her daughter's tennis shoe, putting it in a plastic bag, and throwing it in the trunk. Mission accomplished. As a reward, Tic Tac and I shared a bag of gummy bears. This went on for a while. Just when I was starting to think I had things under control, everything went to hell. In just one night. When I showed up for work at 6 p.m., the gas station was empty. The store was open and his truck was parked in the lot. But no Milton. I searched everywhere, inside and out. Nothing. I called his home phone number. Milton didn't have a cell phone, but there was no answer. As I stood there with the phone in my hand, I heard a dog barking. I went outside and looked to the right to see a large black and gray German Shepherd standing in the middle of the road. It was barking desperately. That must be old Sarge, I thought, remembering the name from the notes. Didn't it say to listen to him? As I stood there not knowing what to do, I felt the wind from Tic Tac flying past. She glided over the barking dog and flew above the trees toward the park. I followed her flight with my eyes. That's when I noticed. The sky above the park had turned a deep dark purple, and it was slowly rotating, like a tornado forming. Damn, damn, damn. What did the notes say? Evacuate campers and hikers. Seal off the park. Load all emergency equipment into the truck. I rushed back to the store and grabbed the truck keys. In about 4 minutes, I threw all the emergency supplies into the truck bed and sped out of the parking lot. I stopped once at the park entrance to set up orange cones and a road closed sign. Then I floored the accelerator. I followed the dog. No matter how fast I drove, the dog was always running 100 feet ahead. When I reached campsite 1, the dog veered off the road, ran past a blue SUV in the parking lot, and plunged into the trees. I hit the brakes and ran after it. Every few minutes old Sarge would bark, so I kept running, following the sound. When I finally burst into a clearing, it took me a moment to understand what I was seeing. There was a father with his teenage daughter and a small boy. They were roasting marshmallows over a campfire. Old Sarge was barking frantically 3 feet away, right in front of them, but they couldn't see him. Maybe the little boy could see him. I could see him backing away, pressing closer to his father. They looked surprised when they noticed me standing by the forest edge, out of breath. You need to get out. Didn't you see the sky? There's a tornado coming. I managed to gasp out. The father looked up at the darkening purple sky and finally began to question.
I didn't hear any storm warnings when I drove here today.
It developed rapidly. Emergency personnel are on their way. But you have to go now, I stammered. Leave everything behind. Only take what you can pack in 5 minutes. I have to warn other campers. The father paused for a moment, looked at his children, and nodded.
Okay, thank you.
He poured water on the fire and began packing. The dog seemed satisfied. It stopped barking and headed toward the main road. When I got back to the truck, old Sarge was waiting in the middle of the road. I started the engine and followed. The dog passed right by campsites 2, 3, and 4. That meant no campers or hikers there. But when we reached Site 5, it passed the only car there, a green Toyota, and headed deep into the forest. As I jumped out of the truck, the wind began to pick up. I followed the barking and this time emerged from the forest at the top of a long hill. At the bottom of the hill was a river. I could see a large tent set up and 2 adults sitting in camping chairs by the river. A small girl must have been napping inside the tent. The adults didn't notice that she had come out of the tent and walked around behind it. She was wearing a red sweater. That's when I saw the ball. A large red plastic ball was rolling slowly toward the trees against the wind, and the little girl was chasing it. I squinted to see where she was heading. Even from this distance, I could barely make out the figure of a man standing among the trees, black clothing with a long coat, and he seemed to be wearing an old-fashioned silk hat with a vivid red band around the bottom. Long, bony fingers were pointing at the red ball, as if calling it toward him. My heart sank as I realized this was the Watcher. There was no way I could make it in time. That's when the dog took off running. Rolling, it headed straight for the black man. When the girl was about 20 feet from the forest, the dog caught up with her. It stopped a few feet in front of the girl, blocking her path. The girl could clearly see the dog. I could tell because she reached out to try to touch it. Old Sarge turned around and licked her face. The girl laughed, and I could see the dog slowly beginning to lead her back to her parents. By the time I ran down to the middle of the hill, both the man in the silk hat and the large red ball hat disappeared. When I told the parents by the river about the tornado warning, they began to move. By the time I got back to the top of the hill, they were packing up and heading to their car. There were only 7 campsites with parking lots. Old Sarge had passed Site 6, so there was only one place left to check. Campsite 7 was known to locals as Red Rock Canyon. From my experience studying trail maps night after night, I knew there was a small service road that ran parallel to the trail all the way to the river. This time, instead of chasing the dog through the forest, I took the service road. It was just wide enough for the truck to pass through, but I drove as fast as possible. The truck bounced along over large potholes and rocks along the road. When I came around a big curve, I had to slam on the brakes. There was a hiker standing in the road. He had a large backpack on his back. He was staring straight at me, but not moving a muscle. He looked frozen with fear. I knew he needed help. My hand automatically went to the door handle. That's when I saw something huge moving among the trees, 10 feet behind him. I never would have seen it if it hadn't been moving. It was at least 20 feet tall, and I could only see its outline. The torso, head, arms, and legs were barely visible. It was like looking through water, transparent but rippling. The body was massive, and its arms almost reached the ground. It stopped a few feet from the trees and twisted its head toward the hiker. Maybe it was smelling his fear. I'll never know. The creature staggered forward and loomed over the hiker. Now it was right behind him. His eyes were locked on mine, frozen with terror. I thought about honking the horn to distract it, but the hiker was between us, and if it took one step forward, it would crush him. That's when I remembered the notebook. There was something about using light as a weapon. I flipped the switch for the bright lights that ran across the truck's roof. I prayed they would work. The creature shrieked and stumbled backward. Then the dog came running out of the forest, crossing the creature's path. Old Sarge was growling and barking as he retreated, drawing the beast away from us. It screamed again and chased after the dog. They disappeared into the forest. When it seemed safe, I jumped out of the truck and ran to the hiker. I quickly helped him and his gear into the passenger seat. Then I floored it toward the main road. By the time we got back to the gas station, I learned his name was Samuel. He had been hiking alone for the past 2 weeks. This was his last stop before heading home. Still in shock, Samuel laughed and said, "This really would have been my last stop. Permanently." Then he said, almost in a whisper, "What was that thing?" I answered honestly, "I don't know, Samuel. I don't know." We got back to the store around midnight. He called for a friend to come pick him up. While we waited, we grabbed some Cokes and chips and beef jerky. When he asked if the dog was okay, I said, "I hope so." I almost said, "You can see the dog?" but stopped myself. That would have led to more questions. Questions I couldn't answer. After he left, my phone rang. It was Milton. He said he'd had a heart attack. A customer who happened to be passing by found him collapsed on the gas station floor and called an ambulance. Fortunately, it was mild, and with medication, he should recover quickly. In the end, I decided to stay. I was needed here, and maybe I can't explain exactly what's happening. I still haven't seen the green lightning, but I think I'll stay, at least for a while. When I started this job, I thought Milton was a crazy old man, but now, I think he might be a gatekeeper, and maybe he's making me an apprentice gatekeeper. Well, I'm working at a remote gas station, a place where strange things happen every day. But, you know what? It's not boring. The first step to recovery is admitting there's a problem. My name is Ethan Cooper, and I think this might be my calling. A few weeks passed. Milton recovered and returned to the day shift, but something had changed. He looked at me differently, with respect. "You did well that night, Ethan," he said. "You are a true guardian." Tic-Tac now waits every morning for the popcorn I sprinkle with green Tic-Tacs. Sometimes she perches on my shoulder and chirps like an old friend. Old Sarge hasn't been seen since that night. I don't know if he survived his battle with the transparent monster, but sometimes I hear his howl on the road. In the darkness, maybe he's still protecting us. I added new pages to the red notebook. 10 light is an effective weapon against beings. The truck's emergency lights have sufficient brightness. Aim carefully when using. 11 when Old Sarge encounters beings. Prioritize the dog's safety. He puts himself in danger to protect all of us. 12 the Watcher has the ability to manipulate red objects. Children are particularly susceptible. Always remain vigilant. I no longer dream of becoming a veterinary assistant. I found more important work here at the edge of this forest, protecting people from dangers they don't know about. Every night, I prepare myself. I reread the red notebook, check the emergency supplies, and listen for Tic-Tac's warnings, because I'm now part of the strange and dangerous world, and someone has to keep watch here. My name is Ethan Cooper, and I am the guardian of the gas station.